What if the one day you've been waiting for your entire life was completely forgotten? It was supposed to be the day that marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. The day Emma had worked so hard for. The day she would finally walk across the stage, cap and gown in place, with her name called out loud for everyone to hear. The day she would finally feel like she had accomplished something after all the late nights, the sacrifices, the loneliness. But when Emma stepped into the auditorium, her heart sank. It was empty. Almost completely empty. She had expected to be nervous, but nothing could prepare her for this. The stage, the rows of chairs meant for her classmates' families, were all vacant. Not a single person was in sight, not even the teachers who were supposed to help set up. It felt like the auditorium itself was holding its breath, waiting for something that wasn't going to happen. She glanced at her phone, trying to calm herself. Her mom hadn't answered her calls all morning, but Emma hoped it was just because she was busy at work. But still, a nagging doubt crept up on her. What if her mom had forgotten? What if it was too late for anyone to show up now? Maybe they'll be here soon, Emma whispered to herself, but even as she said it, she knew it wasn't true. Her mom wasn't coming. Her best friend, Lily, wasn't either. Her dad, who had never been there for her, certainly wasn't going to show up now. Emma had never felt so invisible. It wasn't the first time, but it stung more than ever today. This was supposed to be her day, but it felt like no one cared. No one noticed. As she took a seat in the front row, the empty seats stretched out before her like an endless sea of nothingness. The echoes of her footsteps on the hard floors rang louder than any applause ever could. Her hands gripped the edges of her gown, trying to steady herself, but it felt impossible. She had prepared herself for this moment her entire life, and now that it had come, she couldn't help but feel like she didn't matter. Why was I even expecting anything different? She thought. No one has ever cared about me like that. She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to steady her breathing. There was still time. Someone had to show up. Someone had to care. She could almost feel the crushing weight of disappointment pressing down on her chest. She tried to push it away, to keep herself from breaking down, but it was getting harder to keep her composure. As she sat there, staring at the stage where she was supposed to stand, the thoughts in her head began to spiral. She had been told her whole life that she was strong, that she could do things on her own. But at this moment, she wasn't sure anymore. It was supposed to be the end of all the struggles, the hard work. But in reality, it felt like everything had been a waste. She took out her phone again, hesitated, and then sent a text to Lily. "I'm waiting. Where are you?" A few seconds later, the screen lit up with a reply. "I'm so sorry, Em. I really wanted to be there, but something came up. I'll be thinking of you today, though." The words stung. She had never expected Lily to be there for her in the way Emma had wanted, but this felt different. It wasn't just that Lily couldn't come, it was the fact that she was too busy to even show up for her best friend. Emma had always stood by Lily, and this was the one moment she needed Lily to stand by her. "It's fine," Emma thought bitterly. "I can't expect anyone to change for me." She shoved the phone back in her pocket, feeling the tears welling up in her eyes. She refused to let herself cry. She wasn't going to let her emotions get the best of her, not now. Minutes passed, and still, no one arrived. The small group of faculty members took their places on the stage, preparing to start the ceremony, but Emma felt completely disconnected from everything around her. It was as if she was living in a parallel world, watching everything unfold from the sidelines. How could I have been so stupid? She thought. I've spent so much time hoping for something that was never going to happen. Finally, one of the teachers walked over to her. "Hey, Emma," the teacher, Mrs. Calloway, greeted her with a kind smile. "How are you doing? Everything okay?" Emma forced a smile, her heart aching at the kindness. "Yeah, just waiting for someone to show up." "I'm sure they're on their way," Mrs. Calloway said, glancing nervously at the empty seats. Maybe traffic or, things happen. But Emma wasn't so sure. She didn't want to be rude, so she nodded, but her insides churned with disbelief. She had no idea how much longer she could sit here, pretending everything was okay. The ceremony began, and Emma slowly stood, making her way to the stage with the other students. As she passed the empty seats, she felt the weight of every single one of them on her shoulders. The loneliness was suffocating. The last person to ever make her feel like she mattered was nowhere to be found. But as she approached the stage, something strange happened. She heard a voice calling her name. It wasn't a student or a teacher, it was someone who had been watching her the entire time. "Emma," the voice said again. She turned around, her heart skipping a beat. There, standing at the edge of the auditorium, was the principal, Mr. Donovan. Emma's eyes widened. What's he doing here? Mr. Donovan had always been a kind, but serious man. He wasn't the kind of person to hover around the students, especially not in a moment like this. But there he was, standing in the aisle, looking directly at her. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice calm but filled with concern. Emma nodded, though she wasn't sure if she could keep up the appearance of everything being fine. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just waiting." He seemed to hesitate for a moment before stepping forward. "You don't have to do this alone, I can tell you've been through a lot to get here." And just like that, Emma felt a flicker of something she hadn't felt in a long time. Someone had noticed her. Someone had seen her pain. Without realizing it, she found herself nodding. "I guess I just expected more today." Mr. Donovan nodded thoughtfully, his eyes full of empathy. "You've made it here. And that's something not everyone can say. Sometimes, the world doesn't show up for us the way we hope. But that doesn't mean your hard work, your journey, hasn't been worth it." He gave her a reassuring smile, the kind of smile that said more than words ever could. Emma wasn't sure what to say, but she suddenly felt like maybe, just maybe, there was more to this day than she had given it credit for. "Thanks," she whispered, feeling a sense of calm wash over her for the first time that day. Mr. Donovan gave her one last encouraging look. "Let's get you on that stage. You've earned it." As she walked to the stage, she felt the eyes of the other students on her. But for the first time in a long time, it didn't matter. She wasn't alone. Not anymore. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Emma had always been the kind of girl who kept her head down, focused on her work, and never asked for help. She had learned early on that people don't always show up when you need them the most. Her life was a testament to that. But that was okay. She was used to it. Raised by a single mother, Emma grew up learning how to fend for herself. Her mom, busy with 2 jobs just to make ends meet, wasn't around much. She was always tired, always stretched thin. Emma had learned to make dinner by the time she was 11. By the time she entered high school, she was taking care of the house, doing the laundry, and making sure everything was in order while her mom worked late into the evening. She didn't mind. Not really. Emma loved her mom deeply and wanted to make her life a little easier, even if it meant giving up some of her own childhood. She remembered countless nights sitting at the kitchen table, doing her homework by the dim light of the lamp, while her mom cooked in the background, lost in her own thoughts. Sometimes, Emma would hear her mom on the phone, talking to someone she didn't know. She would ask who it was, but her mom would always say, "Just someone from work." Emma didn't know much about her father. He had left before she was born, and her mother rarely spoke of him. Emma was left to imagine what he might have been like, but the truth was, she didn't really care anymore. The one time she tried to reach out to him when she was 12, she was met with a cold, unfeeling voicemail that said, "Sorry, I'm not in a position to talk right now." And that was it. He had never tried to contact her again. She stopped trying after that. In high school, Emma had made a friend. Lily was the first person who had shown any real interest in her life. They bonded over their shared experiences, feeling like outsiders, being misunderstood, struggling to find a place where they belonged. They were inseparable for a while, spending late nights on the phone and talking about their hopes for the future. But as high school went on, Lily's family situation improved, and Emma's situation remained the same. It wasn't that Emma resented Lily's good fortune, it was just that Lily didn't understand. She couldn't understand why Emma was always busy, always pulled in 100 different directions, always feeling like she was alone in the world. And slowly, their friendship started to drift apart. They hadn't talked much in the last 6 months, not since Lily had gotten a scholarship to a prestigious university far away. Emma had congratulated her, but it hadn't been the same. Emma had always been happy for her friend, but a small part of her couldn't help but feel jealous. Lily had everything Emma wanted: a future, a family, a sense of security. Emma, on the other hand, was left with only the uncertainty of what would come next. Graduation had come fast. Emma had worked tirelessly, earning her diploma while balancing part-time jobs to help her mom. She had never once complained, never once asked for help. She had told herself it would all be worth it, that on this day she would stand on that stage and show everyone what she had accomplished. Maybe, just maybe, it would make up for all the years of loneliness, for the missed opportunities, for the promises broken by those who were supposed to care about her. But as the day approached, she started to feel the creeping doubts. What if no one came? What if no one cared? Still, she held on to the hope that things would be different. Her mom had promised she would be there. Lily had said she would make an effort, even if it was just for a few minutes. The principal, Mr. Donovan, had given her a few encouraging words when they had met in the hallway a week before graduation. He had seen her potential, and that meant more to Emma than he could have known. But now, as Emma stood in the empty auditorium, it was hard to shake the feeling of abandonment. She wanted to be angry. No, she was angry, but anger didn't change anything. Anger didn't fill empty seats or fix broken promises. All she could do was sit there and wait. Wait for someone who was never going to come. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, snapping her out of her thoughts. She pulled it out and saw a message from Lily. I know it's last minute, but I won't be able to make it to your graduation. I'm so sorry. I really wish I could be there. Emma stared at the message, the words swimming before her eyes. She knew deep down that this was coming. Lily had a new life now, a life that didn't have room for Emma. Emma had tried to hold on to their friendship, tried to keep it alive, but it was clear now that their paths were going in different directions. It's fine, Emma thought. I'll just keep going, like I always do. She tried to push the sadness aside, but it lingered, wrapping around her heart like a tight knot. As the ceremony started, Emma stood up and made her way to the stage, her footsteps echoing in the empty auditorium. She felt the weight of every empty seat pressing down on her, but she refused to let it show. She couldn't let anyone see how much this hurt. She climbed the stairs to the stage and stood in line with the other graduates. The ceremony went on, the speeches, the awards, the names being called one by one. And all the while, Emma felt like she was drifting further and further away from the reality she had imagined. She didn't belong here. She didn't belong anywhere. It wasn't until her name was called that she snapped back to the moment. The announcer's voice echoed through the auditorium, and Emma stepped forward to take her diploma. She walked to the center of the stage, alone, surrounded by faces she didn't know. The applause was distant, almost muffled in the empty space. She forced a smile, her heart pounding in her chest. This was supposed to be her moment, but it felt hollow, like she was standing in a dream that she couldn't wake up from. As she reached out to take the diploma from the teacher on stage, she looked out into the crowd, half hoping for a miracle. But there was nothing. No one. Only the empty chairs staring back at her, like a sea of judgment. Then, Just as she was about to turn away, she heard a voice. "Emma?" It was Mr. Donovan, standing near the side of the stage, looking directly at her. She hadn't seen him approach, but there he was. And in that moment, he was the only person in the room who wasn't a stranger. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice calm but filled with concern. Emma nodded, trying to fight back the tears. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just waiting." Mr. Donovan didn't say anything more, but his eyes seemed to understand. Emma wasn't sure what was happening, but in that moment, she felt something shift. Maybe she wasn't as invisible as she thought. He gave her a small, reassuring smile. "You've worked hard to get here, Emma. Don't let this moment define you. You're stronger than you think." Emma felt a tear slip down her cheek, but this time, it wasn't from sadness. It was from something else. Maybe, just maybe, things could still get better. The applause slowly faded, and Emma stood frozen on stage, clutching her diploma. The words from Mr. Donovan echoed in her mind. "You're stronger than you think." It was supposed to be a triumphant moment, the culmination of years of hard work. But all Emma could feel was the suffocating silence that surrounded her. The emptiness of the auditorium was unbearable, and no matter how hard she tried to steady her breath, the tightness in her chest wouldn't let go. She forced herself to take one step, then another, moving away from the center of the stage. Each step felt heavier than the last. She wanted to escape, to run out of the building and leave the emptiness behind. But she knew she couldn't. Not yet. As the ceremony came to an end, Emma filed off the stage along with the other graduates. The other students were chatting, laughing, basking in the glow of their achievements, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling of isolation that gripped her heart. She had spent so many years fighting to get to this point, but now that she was here, all she felt was an overwhelming sense of loneliness. It was as if the world had forgotten her. Her classmates were already starting to gather in small groups, hugging their families and friends, sharing the joy of the day. Emma tried to blend in, to smile and congratulate the people around her, but it felt like she was watching someone else's life unfold. None of it felt real. She walked down the steps from the stage, her hands shaking slightly as she tucked her diploma under her arm. The reality of the situation was starting to sink in. This day, the one she had dreamed about for so long, was nothing like she had imagined. She had expected cheering, celebrations, maybe even a few tears from her mom. But instead, she had walked across the stage to the sound of silence. The applause she had hoped for was drowned out by the emptiness of the auditorium. As she moved through the crowd, Emma spotted her mom, standing near the back of the room. She wasn't smiling, she wasn't clapping. She was just standing there, looking at Emma with a distant expression. Emma's heart dropped. She had been hoping to see her mom rush over, to hug her and say how proud she was. But instead, her mom just stood there, barely acknowledging her presence. "Mom?" Emma called out softly, her voice trembling. Her mom looked up, almost startled, as if she hadn't realized Emma was even there. "Oh, Emma, congratulations, sweetheart." The words were flat, lacking the warmth and enthusiasm Emma had been craving. Her mom's face was tired, drawn with lines that weren't just from age, but from the stress and exhaustion of a life lived in survival mode. Emma had always admired her mother's strength, but today it felt like that strength was a wall between them. "Are you okay?" Emma asked, stepping closer, trying to make eye contact. Her mom gave a small, strained smile. "I'm fine. Just a little tired, you know? Been working all week." Emma nodded, but the disappointment was suffocating. Her mom hadn't even bothered to dress up for the occasion. She was still in her work clothes, her hair hastily pulled back in a messy bun. There was no excitement in her eyes, no sense of pride. Emma didn't know what to say. The moment that she had imagined for years, the moment she had hoped would bring them closer, was slipping away. The distance between them was too great now, too vast to bridge with a few words. Emma swallowed hard, trying to keep her composure, but it felt like her chest was closing in around her. "It's okay, Mom," she said quietly. "I understand." Her mom blinked at her, her expression softening for just a moment, but the distance was still there. "Do you want to get something to eat?" her mom asked, her voice lacking the warmth that should have accompanied such an offer. "Maybe we can grab dinner before I have to head back to work?" The hollow emptiness that Emma had been feeling only deepened. She had been hoping for something more, something meaningful. Instead, it was just another day. Another moment where she was expected to go along with life as it was, to accept the fact that things would never be what she had dreamed. "I'll be fine," Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think I'm just going to go home." Her mom gave her a distracted smile, too preoccupied with her own thoughts to truly connect. "Okay, you deserve a rest." Emma forced a smile and turned away, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders. She had worked so hard to make this day special, but in the end, it was just another ordinary day in a life that felt anything but extraordinary. The parking lot was nearly empty when Emma made her way to her car. It was a beautiful day outside, the sun bright and clear, but all Emma could feel was the cold, gnawing emptiness inside of her. She slipped into the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel tightly, as if holding on to something, anything, that could anchor her to reality. She started the car, but instead of heading straight home, she drove aimlessly. The road stretched out before her, endless and unfamiliar, just like her future. She wasn't sure where she was going, but for the first time in a long time, she didn't care. As she drove, the reality of what had just happened began to settle in. Her graduation day wasn't supposed to feel like this. It wasn't supposed to be a day of loneliness and disappointment. But somewhere deep down, she had known it would be. She had never really believed anyone would show up for her. She had convinced herself that she was fine on her own, that she didn't need anyone. But now, in the silence of the empty car, it felt different. It felt like the final confirmation of everything she had feared. She stopped at a park, not knowing why, but something about the quiet solitude of the place felt comforting. The sound of the wind rustling through the trees, the distant chatter of children playing on swings, it all seemed so far removed from the world she had just left behind. Emma leaned back in her seat, staring up at the sky, trying to hold back the tears that were threatening to spill. She had worked so hard to get here, to make something of herself, but now all she felt was the crushing weight of loneliness. Why does it always feel like I'm the one left behind? As the tears finally began to fall, Emma couldn't help but wonder if she would ever feel truly seen, truly loved, or if she was destined to always be the girl who waited, waiting for people who would never show up, waiting for a life that felt like it was just out of reach. The question echoed in her mind, unanswered. But for now, all Emma could do was sit there, alone, with the weight of the silence pressing in on her. Emma wiped her eyes quickly, smearing the tears across her cheeks in a futile attempt to compose herself. She hadn't cried in a long time. Not like this. It wasn't just the disappointment of the day, it was everything that had built up over the years, the weight of every unspoken word, every empty seat, every moment she had spent trying to prove she was enough. The park was empty now, save for a few joggers and a couple of parents pushing strollers. Emma felt like an outsider, like she didn't belong in this world of normalcy and connection. Her heart ached as she watched the families walk by, the parents chatting happily, their children laughing. She had always wondered what it would have been like to have that kind of family, that kind of love. But somewhere along the way, she had given up on the idea that it was ever meant to be her. She sat there for a while longer, staring into the distance, unsure of what to do next. She knew she couldn't go back to the same life. Not the one she had before graduation. But what now? What was left for her? What came after this feeling of emptiness? Suddenly, the sound of footsteps interrupted her thoughts. Emma turned, startled, to see Mr. Donovan standing a few feet away. He had a soft smile on his face, his hands tucked in his pockets. His presence was familiar and comforting, but at the same time, it caught her off guard. "Mind if I sit?" he asked, his voice gentle. Emma hesitated but nodded, gesturing toward the empty space beside her. She was surprised, to say the least. What was he doing here, at the park, after the ceremony? He wasn't her teacher anymore. Their connection was nothing more than a passing interaction. But there was something in the way he carried himself that made Emma feel like maybe, just maybe, he wasn't so far removed from her after all. "Of course," she said, her voice soft. Mr. Donovan sat down beside her, his gaze lingering on the horizon for a moment. Neither of them spoke. The quiet between them was not uncomfortable, just filled with the weight of the day's events, of everything Emma had been feeling but hadn't been able to express. "I saw you leave the ceremony early," he said finally, breaking the silence. "And I thought maybe you'd want some company." Emma glanced at him, surprised by his thoughtfulness. She didn't know why, but something about his quiet concern made her feel like maybe he understood more than anyone else had. She gave a small, self-deprecating laugh. "It's nothing," she replied. "Just not what I expected." Mr. Donovan nodded, understanding in his eyes. Graduation can be a lot more complicated than people make it seem. Everyone expects it to be this big celebration, but sometimes it just feels like a reminder of all the things you're still figuring out. Emma looked down at her hands, twisting her fingers together. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. I mean, I've worked so hard for this day, but it feels like it doesn't even matter. Like none of it matters." He was quiet for a moment before responding. "I understand that feeling. A lot of people do. You spend so much of your life focused on getting somewhere, on reaching a goal, but when you finally get there, you realize the journey is only just beginning. Graduation is an end, but it's also a new beginning. What happens next is up to you." Emma sighed. "But what if I don't know what comes next? What if I'm just lost?" Mr. Donovan's gaze softened. "I don't think you're lost, Emma. I think you're just trying to find your way, like all of us are. The world doesn't always make sense, and sometimes we feel like we're walking through it alone. But you're not alone. Not really. You just need to find the right people who'll walk with you." Emma frowned, her thoughts swirling. "But I've tried. People always leave. My mom, Lily. It's like no one stays, and I'm just left to figure it out on my own." "That's hard," he said softly. "But the right people are real friends, real connections. They don't leave. They're just waiting for the right moment to show up. Maybe it's not today. Maybe it's not even tomorrow. But they're out there, Emma. You just have to keep going until you find them." His words sank in slowly, like rain soaking into dry ground. Emma had always believed that she had to carry the weight of the world alone. She had built walls around herself, convinced that if she relied on others, she would only be disappointed. But Mr. Donovan was right. The people who truly mattered, who would stand by her, wouldn't leave. She just had to give them a chance. "I don't know if I'm strong enough for that," Emma admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "You are," Mr. Donovan replied without hesitation. "You're stronger than you think, remember? The fact that you're here today, despite everything, proves that. Sometimes, strength is not about never feeling lost. It's about knowing when to ask for help, when to let others in." Emma looked at him then, really looked at him, and for the first time in a long while, she felt like maybe someone saw her. Not just as the girl who had to do everything on her own, but as a person who had value, who deserved to be seen and heard. "I've spent so much time trying to push people away," she said, her voice breaking. "Maybe I've been pushing away the wrong people." Mr. Donovan gave her a kind smile. "It's never too late to change that. And remember, change isn't always immediate. It's a process. But it starts with small steps. A conversation. A little trust. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real." Emma nodded slowly, feeling a sense of clarity she hadn't felt all day. For the first time, she wasn't just seeing the end of one chapter, she was seeing the possibility of something new, something better. The road ahead was uncertain, yes, but it was also full of potential. She didn't have to have it all figured out right now. It was okay to take her time. "Thanks," she said quietly, wiping her eyes once more. "I didn't expect to hear all of that today." Mr. Donovan chuckled softly. "Sometimes, the best things happen when you least expect them. Just keep moving forward, Emma. You don't have to know exactly where you're going, just that you're going somewhere. And that's enough." As he stood up, preparing to leave, Emma felt a small weight lift from her chest. The conversation had given her a glimpse of something she hadn't dared to hope for, the possibility of starting over, of letting go of the past and embracing the future, one step at a time. "I'll be okay," she said, her voice stronger now, more certain. Mr. Donovan gave her a nod, as if he knew exactly what she meant. "I believe you will be." As he walked away, Emma sat back in the park bench, looking at the sky, the afternoon sun casting a warm glow over everything. Maybe it wasn't too late to change. Maybe, just maybe, the best was yet to come. For the first time all day, Emma allowed herself to believe that something better was waiting for her. And for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to face it. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The days after graduation blurred together, each one following the same quiet rhythm. Emma tried to fill her time with distractions, cleaning out her locker, finishing the last of her school assignments, picking up extra shifts at the local diner, but none of it seemed to ease the quiet ache in her heart. Despite Mr. Donovan's encouraging words, the weight of her loneliness seemed to follow her wherever she went. It wasn't that Emma didn't have friends, she did. She had acquaintances, people she laughed with in class, the occasional person who offered a casual congrats after the ceremony. But none of them felt like the kind of friends who would show up for her, who would drop everything and be there when it mattered. They weren't the people who would check in after a rough day or help her carry the emotional load when everything felt too heavy to handle on her own. So, she spent her days in solitude, trying to process the strange mix of relief and emptiness that came with the end of high school. It felt like she had crossed a finish line without realizing there was a whole new race waiting for her on the other side. The uncertainty of the future was suffocating, and Emma wasn't sure where to begin. It was late one afternoon when the phone rang. The sound of the ringtone startled her, pulling her out of her thoughts. She glanced at the screen. It was an unfamiliar number, but something told her to pick up. "Hello," Emma said, her voice tentative. "Emma?" The voice on the other end was familiar, but distant. It took Emma a moment to place it. "Lily?" she asked, almost incredulously. There was a pause before Lily spoke again, and Emma could hear the hesitance in her voice. "Yeah, it's me. I know it's been a while. I'm sorry for not keeping in touch." Emma's heart skipped a beat. Lily was her best friend, the one person who had always been there, who she had shared everything with, from late-night talks to school projects. But the last few months had been tough between them. They hadn't spoken since the falling out, the one that Emma still wasn't sure how to fix. "You don't have to apologize," Emma said, trying to keep her voice steady. I don't know. It's been a weird time, you know." Lily sighed. "I get it. I've been going through my own stuff. But I've been thinking about you a lot lately, and I thought you were mad at me," Emma blurted out, unable to hold back the words. The tension that had built up between them over the last year had been like a slow-burning fire, and it felt like it had finally erupted in a moment of raw honesty. Lily was silent for a moment, and Emma's heart pounded in her chest. "I wasn't mad at you," Lily finally said, her voice soft. I don't know. I felt like we were growing apart, like we didn't have the same connection anymore. I didn't know how to fix it." Emma closed her eyes, a wave of emotion flooding over her. I didn't know how to fix it either. I've been so focused on everything else, on what was happening in my life, that I didn't realize how much I was pushing you away. Lily's voice softened, and Emma could hear the sincerity in her words. I get it. It wasn't just you. It was me too. We were both kind of lost in our own worlds. But I miss you, Emma. I really do. The words hung in the air between them, and Emma felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of hope, like maybe things weren't as broken as they seemed. Maybe this was the start of something new, a way to rebuild the friendship that had once meant everything to her. I miss you too, Lily, Emma said, her voice thick with emotion. Maybe we can start over. I don't know where we'll go from here, but I want to try. Lily's laugh was light, almost relieved. Yeah, I think that sounds like a good idea. I'd like that. There was a moment of silence, and Emma could almost hear Lily smiling on the other end. So, what are you doing right now? You free for a catch-up? Emma hesitated, glancing out the window at the fading sunlight. I'm not doing anything. I could use a break from everything. Perfect. I'll pick you up in an hour. Let's grab some dinner and talk. No expectations, just us. Emma's heart swelled with a mixture of relief and excitement. She had missed Lily more than she had realized. As much as she had convinced herself she didn't need anyone, the truth was, she did. And maybe this was her chance to fix what had been broken. Okay, I'll be ready, Emma replied, her smile returning. The hour passed in a blur of nervous anticipation. Emma paced around her small apartment, unsure of what to wear, trying to distract herself from the whirlwind of emotions that had suddenly resurfaced. She hadn't realized how much she had missed Lily until she heard her voice on the phone. It felt like a lifeline being thrown to her, and she didn't want to mess it up. When Lily pulled up outside her building, Emma hurried out the door, feeling a rush of excitement she hadn't felt in months. She opened the passenger door of the car and slid into the seat. Hey, Lily greeted her with a grin. You look great. Emma laughed, feeling a little self-conscious. I don't know about that, but thanks. Lily's smile softened, and she started the car. I'm glad we're doing this. I missed you. I missed you too, Emma admitted, her voice quiet. The drive was short, but it gave them time to catch up on small talk, to laugh about old memories, and to ease back into the rhythm of their friendship. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she was part of something again. Like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as alone as she had felt. They arrived at a small diner, the kind with red booths and neon signs that flickered softly in the evening light. It felt familiar, like a place where people gathered, shared stories, and built connections. Emma felt a sense of comfort settle over her as they slid into a booth and ordered their food. For the next couple of hours, they talked about everything and nothing. They shared stories from the past few months, laughed about their awkward high school moments, and reminisced about the way things used to be. It felt like no time had passed at all, like the space between them had never existed. As they finished their meal and sat back in their seats, Emma felt a warmth in her chest. It was a feeling she hadn't realized she missed so much, the feeling of being understood, of sharing her life with someone who truly cared. When it was time to go, they walked out into the cool night air together, the weight of the past months lifting with every step. Thanks for tonight, Emma said, her voice full of gratitude. I needed this. Lily smiled, her eyes bright with sincerity. Me too. Let's not wait so long to do it again, okay? Emma nodded, a sense of peace settling over her. I'll hold you to that. As they parted ways, Emma's heart felt lighter than it had in weeks. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't facing it alone. And that made all the difference. The next few days felt like they carried the weight of a fresh start. The conversation with Lily had been like opening a window after months of suffocating in a stuffy room. The air felt clearer now, lighter. Emma had spent so long holding herself together with brittle threads that the simple act of reuniting with her best friend felt like a deep breath. It didn't fix everything, but it was a start. As much as she was grateful for the renewed connection with Lily, there was still a lingering feeling of uncertainty. It was like Emma was standing on the edge of something, unsure of whether to take the next step. The weight of the world didn't just vanish because of a few good conversations, but maybe those conversations were a stepping stone, a foundation on which she could rebuild. The next morning, Emma decided to take a walk. She didn't have a particular destination in mind. She just needed to clear her head, to get out of the apartment where the walls felt too close. The city was buzzing with life, but as she walked through the crowded streets, Emma felt strangely detached. She had always loved the energy of the city, but today it felt almost overwhelming. She walked for an hour, just letting her feet carry her, and eventually found herself at the edge of a small park. The sun was high, the air warm but not too hot, and the green of the trees contrasted sharply with the concrete around her. Emma sat down on a bench, letting the peaceful atmosphere surround her, and closed her eyes for a moment. Her mind wandered to the future, to the question that had been nagging at her since graduation. What now? What was she supposed to do with this life that felt like it had just been thrown into chaos? High school was over, her mom was still distant, and though she had reconnected with Lily, Emma didn't know how to navigate the complicated emotions surrounding her. The only thing she was certain of was that she couldn't stay in the limbo she had been in before. She thought about the scholarship applications she had filled out, about the internships she had looked into but never followed up on. She thought about the small, seemingly insignificant dreams she had pushed aside because they didn't fit the path others had expected her to take. Maybe it was time to chase those dreams, to go after something that felt right for her, not because it was what was expected. Sometimes, you have to step outside your comfort zone to discover where you belong, she whispered to herself. The thought of pursuing her passions was daunting. Emma didn't know what would happen next, but maybe, just maybe, that was okay. Life wasn't a straight line, and for the first time, she was starting to believe that she didn't need to have it all figured out right now. Just as she was lost in her thoughts, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out and saw a message from her mom. "I know it's been a while, but I was thinking about you. Let's talk soon?" Emma hesitated for a moment. Her relationship with her mom had always been fraught. It was like they were both standing in separate worlds, constantly orbiting each other, but never truly connecting. Emma had long ago stopped expecting things to change, but now, with the past few days swirling around in her mind, she wondered if it was time to take a step toward her mom, if it was time to try again. Taking a deep breath, Emma quickly typed a reply. "I'd like that. Let me know when you're free." Her finger hovered over the send button for a moment before she pressed it. She didn't know what the conversation would bring, but there was something in her that felt ready to try. Ready to take that first step toward healing whatever had been broken between them. Later that evening, Emma sat in her small apartment, scrolling through a list of local art schools. She had always loved art, the way colors could capture emotion, the way a brushstroke could tell a story. She had pushed that passion aside, thinking it was impractical, just a hobby. But now, as she scrolled through the different programs, she couldn't help but wonder, what if it was more than that? What if she could turn this into something real? She clicked on one of the programs, an art school in the heart of the city, and began reading the course descriptions. They had everything she had dreamed of: painting, sculpture, art history, and even business classes for artists. The thought of immersing herself in something so personal, so creative, filled her with a mixture of excitement and fear. Could she do this? Could she leave behind the safety of the known and take a chance on something that felt right for her, but so uncertain? Before she could talk herself out of it, she clicked on the application link. The form was long, questions about her background, her portfolio, why she wanted to pursue this career, but as she filled out the answers, Emma realized something. This wasn't just an application for art school. It was an application for a new chapter in her life. A chapter where she followed her heart, where she chased what made her feel alive, not what was expected of her. She spent the next hour carefully crafting her responses, then hit submit. The moment the application was sent, Emma felt a rush of relief. It was done. She had taken the first step toward something new. She didn't know where it would lead, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was in control. She was no longer drifting. She had a direction. The next day, Emma was at work when she received another message from her mom. "I'm free tonight. How about dinner at the diner?" Her heart fluttered with a mix of excitement and nervousness. She hadn't sat down with her mom for dinner in so long. There had been so many moments where Emma had felt like she was carrying the weight of the world on her own, moments where she didn't know how to bridge the distance between them. But this could be a chance to finally talk, to start the process of healing. "I'm looking forward to it," she typed back, her fingers trembling slightly as she pressed send. The rest of her shift passed in a blur of movement and conversation with customers, but Emma's mind was elsewhere. She thought about the conversation ahead, about what she wanted to say to her mom. She wasn't sure how it would go, but for the first time, she was willing to give it a shot. That evening, Emma arrived at the diner early. She sat at a booth by the window, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The diner was quieter than usual, the clink of silverware and the soft murmur of voices filling the space with a comforting hum. When her mom walked in, Emma's heart skipped a beat. She looked just the same, her auburn hair a little longer, her expression guarded but soft. She looked around, then spotted Emma and made her way to the booth. For a moment, neither of them spoke. But then her mom sat down across from her, offering a small smile. "Hey, kid," she said softly. "Hey," Emma replied, her voice thick with emotion. For the first time in a long time, Emma didn't feel like she had to be the strong one. She didn't have to hide behind walls or pretend everything was fine. This was the beginning of something new. And for the first time in a while, Emma felt like maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. Dinner with her mom was a quiet affair. They sat at the diner, the soft hum of the restaurant around them, and for a while, neither of them said much. The last few months of silence had created an invisible wall between them, a barrier of unspoken words and unresolved feelings. Emma could feel it as she sat across from her mom, an awkward tension, like they were both afraid to be the first to bring up what had been left unsaid for so long. Emma stared at her menu, trying to focus on the words printed in front of her. The options all seemed meaningless. She wasn't here for a meal. She was here to figure out where they went from here. She felt like a stranger, sitting across from the woman who had given her life but who, over the years, had become a distant figure. Her mom, Lisa, was still looking at the menu, her eyes flickering nervously as she chewed on her bottom lip. Emma noticed how her mom's hair, once vibrant and thick, had begun to show streaks of gray. There were lines around her eyes now, ones Emma hadn't noticed before. She wasn't the same person Emma remembered from her childhood, the woman who had always been there to kiss her forehead goodnight, to make her favorite pancakes on Saturdays, the woman who used to hold her close when life felt too hard. Finally, Lisa put the menu down, breaking the silence. "I'm sorry, Emma," she said, her voice quiet but sincere. Emma felt her heart tighten. She didn't know if she was ready for an apology or even if one was enough to fix everything. But she nodded slowly, urging her mom to continue. "I know I've been distant," Lisa said, looking down at the table. "I've been so caught up in my own life, my own struggles that I didn't realize how much I was pushing you away." Emma's chest tightened as she listened, the words she had been yearning to hear for months finally falling from her mom's lips. "It's not just that," Emma replied softly. "I've been feeling alone for a long time. Even when you were there, it felt like you weren't really there. like we were in different worlds. The vulnerability in her voice surprised her. She had spent so much time hiding her feelings, burying them deep so that they wouldn't come to the surface. But now, with her mom across from her, she couldn't help it. The hurt, the confusion, the loneliness, it all came rushing forward. Lisa's eyes filled with regret as she reached across the table, her hand trembling as it rested on Emma's. "I didn't mean for that to happen," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I thought if I just kept going, kept everything together, that it would all work out. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you in the process." Emma swallowed hard, fighting back the tears that threatened to spill. I wanted to be close to you, Mom. I wanted to share everything with you, but I didn't know how. It felt like you didn't care, and it was easier to shut myself off." Lisa's eyes welled up with tears. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted to make you feel like you weren't important to me. You've always been my world, Emma. I lost myself in the chaos of everything else, and I neglected the most important thing in my life, you." The weight of her mom's words hit Emma like a wave, washing over her in a rush of conflicting emotions. Part of her wanted to forgive her, to let go of the years of hurt and distance. But part of her still felt the sting of abandonment, the years of not knowing how to bridge the gap between them. "I don't know how to fix this," Emma admitted, her voice cracking. "I don't know how to make things go back to the way they were." Lisa squeezed her hand gently. "I don't think we can go back, sweetie. But maybe we can start again. One step at a time." Emma nodded, though a small part of her wasn't sure if she could ever fully let go of the pain. The hurt didn't just vanish because her mom said the words Emma had longed to hear. But maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of healing. A start, not a finish. Their food arrived, and for a moment, the silence between them wasn't so heavy. They ate slowly, each of them lost in their thoughts, processing what had been said. Emma could feel a shift, a subtle change in the air, as though they were both adjusting to the new dynamic between them. Later that night, Emma lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The conversation with her mom had opened a door, but it hadn't yet unlocked all the answers. She didn't know where this would lead. If her relationship with her mom could ever be fully repaired or if it would always feel fractured. But for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she had a choice. She could keep holding onto the past, to the hurt, or she could take a chance and move forward. As she drifted off to sleep, a small sense of peace settled over her. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain: she wasn't alone anymore. Not with Lily back in her life, not with her mom trying to rebuild what they had lost. She had people who cared about her, and maybe that was enough. The next day, Emma woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. She couldn't change the past, and she couldn't erase the pain that had built up over the years. But she could take control of her future. She decided to take a bold step. It had been on her mind for weeks now, ever since she hit submit on that art school application. It was time to move forward, to stop waiting for the perfect moment or for everything to align perfectly. She wasn't going to wait for some magical sign that everything would be okay. Emma stood up from her bed, took a deep breath, and picked up her phone. She opened her contacts, scrolling until she found Lily's name. "Hey, wanna grab lunch today?" She typed quickly, pressing send before she could second-guess herself. It wasn't much, just a simple invitation. But it felt like a step in the right direction. She couldn't undo everything, but she could try to rebuild, one small moment at a time. As she set her phone down, she felt a surge of excitement. No matter how uncertain the future seemed, Emma was beginning to realize that she didn't have to face it alone. And maybe that was the most important thing of all. The lunch invitation was simple, but it carried more weight than Emma could have imagined. When she sent the message to Lily, part of her felt a spark of excitement, but another part of her was hesitant. They had just started mending their relationship after months of silence. Could it really be that easy to pick up where they left off? She wasn't sure, But as the day stretched on and she went about her routine, she couldn't shake the feeling that it was time to stop hesitating, to stop waiting for everything to align perfectly. At 1 p.m., she received a message back from Lily. "I'd love to. How about the little cafe on 5th? It's been ages since we've gone there." Emma smiled, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. It had been so long since she'd stepped foot in that cafe. It was a place they used to go after school, talking about everything and nothing all at once. It felt like the perfect place to restart things, to rekindle the connection they once had. Perfect. "I'll see you there in 30 minutes. Emma arrived at the cafe early. She stood outside for a moment, just breathing in the familiar smells of freshly brewed coffee and baked pastries. The memories came rushing back, the laughter, the long conversations, the sense of belonging. She hadn't realized how much she had missed this until now. When Lily arrived, she was just as Emma remembered, her dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail, wearing her usual oversized sweater, and a wide smile that seemed to erase all the tension in the room. "Hey," Lily greeted her, pulling her into a quick hug. Emma immediately felt the warmth of their old friendship, the way they could slip back into their rhythm like no time had passed. "Hey," Emma replied, a grin spreading across her face. "It's been too long." They slid into a booth by the window, the warm light filtering through the glass and casting a glow on the table. As the waiter came to take their orders, Emma could sense the uncertainty that hung in the air. She didn't know how to bridge the gap between what had been and what they were becoming. The conversation was light at first, talking about work, about the city, about mutual friends, but there was an unspoken understanding that the real conversation still needed to happen. "So, how have you been?" Lily asked after a few minutes of comfortable silence. Emma took a deep breath, collecting her thoughts. She had spent so much time focused on the weight of her own emotions, on the ways she had felt abandoned, but now, sitting across from Lily, she realized something. She wasn't the only one who had been struggling. "I've been figuring things out," Emma said carefully. "It's been hard, honestly. Graduation, my mom. I feel like everything is changing, and I don't really know where I fit in all of it." Lily nodded, her eyes sympathetic. "I get that. I've been feeling the same way. After I left for college, I thought things would be different, you know? But sometimes, it's like I'm still trying to find my place in all of this." Emma's heart softened as she listened. Lily wasn't just the friend she had grown up with. She was a person trying to make sense of the same life-changing events Emma was navigating. Maybe they were both figuring it out together. "I don't know," Emma said after a pause. "I feel like I've spent so much time trying to be perfect, trying to please everyone. But now I realize I've lost sight of what I really want." Lily's face softened with understanding. "Yeah, I know what you mean. I've always been so focused on making everyone happy that I forgot to ask myself what I wanted. What makes me happy?" There was a long pause, the weight of their words sinking in. They were both standing at crossroads in their lives, trying to figure out who they were and what they wanted. Emma felt a mixture of relief and fear. The road ahead was uncertain, but she was beginning to see that maybe it was okay not to have all the answers. Maybe it was okay to take it one step at a time. I think we're both in the same place," Emma said finally. "We've been so caught up in everything else, we've forgotten to listen to ourselves. To what we really want." Lily smiled, her eyes brightening. "Yeah, we're not alone in this, Em. We never have been." The simple truth of her words hit Emma like a wave. They had always been each other's support system, even when things felt fractured. And despite everything, despite the years of silence and misunderstanding, the bond between them hadn't broken. It had simply been waiting to be rediscovered. "I'm glad we're talking again," Emma said quietly. Lily nodded. "Me too. And I'm really sorry about everything that happened. I know I wasn't there for you when you needed me." Emma felt a pang in her chest, but it wasn't the same as before. It didn't feel like the heavy weight of resentment anymore. It felt like the beginning of healing. "You don't have to apologize," Emma replied. "We both made mistakes. But I think it's time we move forward, right?" Lily's smile grew wider. "Absolutely." The conversation shifted as they started to talk about their futures. The topics weren't groundbreaking, but they felt like the first true steps in rebuilding the trust they had once shared. They talked about Emma's decision to apply to art school and how Lily was considering a career change. It felt good to dream again, to allow themselves the freedom to consider possibilities without feeling the weight of expectations. As they finished their lunch, Emma felt lighter. It wasn't that everything was magically fixed, but she realized how much she had been holding on to: expectations, disappointments, unresolved feelings. It was a heavy load, but sitting across from Lily now, Emma knew she didn't have to carry it alone anymore. The two of them walked out of the cafe together, a sense of camaraderie between them that hadn't been there in a long time. "I'm glad you came today," Emma said as they stepped into the sunlight. It feels like the start of something new." Lily linked her arm with Emma's, her voice filled with certainty. "It is, Em. It really is." As they walked down the street together, Emma realized something important. She didn't have to have it all figured out. She didn't have to know exactly where she was headed or what the future held. But for the first time in a long time, she felt like she had a direction. One where she was no longer alone, where the weight of her past was finally beginning to lift. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The next steps were still unclear. The path was still winding, and there were many unanswered questions. But in that moment, with her best friend by her side, Emma felt a sense of hope rising within her, hope that she wasn't alone, and that with time, things could get better. And for the first time in a while, Emma believed it. The following week passed by in a blur. Emma found herself preoccupied with the simple but comforting realization that life didn't have to be as complicated as she had once thought. She didn't need to have everything planned out or figured out. For the first time, she was allowing herself to take things day by day. She spent time with Lily, working through old memories, old jokes, and new dreams. They had found a rhythm again. Though there were still moments of tension when the silence between them grew too heavy, they had learned to speak it out. Each conversation, no matter how small, felt like a thread being woven back into the fabric of their friendship. Emma also found herself thinking more about the art school application. The acceptance letters had already gone out, but the idea of leaving her current life behind, her mom, her friends, the security of knowing everything, was daunting. It was one thing to dream about it, another to live it. Could she really go after what she wanted, especially if it meant stepping into the unknown? Her mom had been more present, too. They had spent more time together, small moments, like making breakfast on Sunday mornings or simply sitting on the porch in the evenings, talking about nothing in particular. Emma noticed the subtle changes in her mom, the effort to connect, the quiet understanding that passed between them. It wasn't perfect. There were still unhealed wounds, but Emma was learning to let go of the bitterness, even if it wasn't easy. But then, one evening, as she was lying on her bed scrolling through Instagram, an email popped up in her inbox. It was from the art school. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She clicked it open, her hands trembling slightly as she read the first few lines. "Dear Emma, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted to the art program at Blue Ridge Academy." Emma blinked. Her mind raced. This was real. The dream she had held on to, the dream she had nearly forgotten in the chaos of everything else, was now staring her in the face. She had been accepted. The weight of the moment hit her in waves. There was excitement, yes, but also a deep sense of fear. This was the moment when she would have to decide, would she take the leap? Or would she stay where it felt safe, comfortable, and familiar? Her thoughts swirled, and she found herself picking up her phone, dialing Lily's number without thinking. "Hello." Lily's voice came through the phone, warm and familiar. "Hi." I got in, Emma blurted out. Her words hung in the air as though they had a life of their own. Lily let out a gasp. Oh my God, that's amazing. Emma felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Yeah, it is, but I don't know what to do. I've been dreaming about this, but it feels like everything's changing all at once. I don't know if I'm ready to leave everything behind. There was a pause on the other end, and Emma could practically hear the wheels turning in Lily's mind. Finally, Lily spoke, her voice steady but filled with excitement. You don't have to have it all figured out, Em. You've worked so hard for this. It's your chance to do what you love, to go after what you really want. Emma sighed, her chest tightening with uncertainty. But I've got my mom, and what about the people here? What if I'm making a mistake? I don't think you are, Lily said softly. I think you're just scared, like anyone would be. But you can't let fear hold you back from living your life. You deserve this. You deserve to take this chance. Emma's heart swelled with gratitude. She had missed Lily's steady voice, her unwavering belief in her. I don't want to regret it, you know. I know, Lily replied. But not taking a chance, not going for what you want, that's the real regret. You'll figure it out, one step at a time. For the first time in a long while, Emma felt a glimmer of clarity. Maybe she didn't have all the answers, but she wasn't supposed to. She didn't need to know exactly what the next few years would look like. She just needed to take the first step, even if it was scary. Thanks, Lil, Emma whispered, a smile spreading across her face. I think I'm ready to do this. That evening, Emma sat on the couch with her mom, the two of them watching a movie together. It was a quiet moment, one of those ordinary but meaningful nights where everything felt simple and peaceful. The silence between them wasn't strained anymore. It was just comfortable. After the movie ended, Emma turned to her mom, her heart racing. She had been thinking about this conversation for days, but now that the moment was here, she wasn't sure what to say. Mom? Emma's voice was soft, tentative. Yeah? Lisa looked at her, a gentle smile on her face. I got in, Emma said, her words rushing out. To the art school. I've been accepted. Lisa's eyes widened, and for a moment, Emma could see the pride, the joy, and even a little surprise in her mom's expression. She hadn't expected this, and Emma could tell she was processing it in real time. That's amazing, Emma, Lisa said, her voice filled with warmth. You've worked so hard for this. Emma bit her lip, unsure of how to voice the uncertainty gnawing at her. I don't know, Mom. I'm so scared. Everything's changing so fast. I don't know if I'm ready to leave. I don't know if I want to leave you. Lisa's expression softened. She moved closer, placing a hand on Emma's shoulder. I understand, sweetheart. But I want you to know that I'm so proud of you. I know it's scary, but you've always been the one to chase after your dreams. You can't stop now, not when you've come this far. Tears welled up in Emma's eyes as she leaned into her mom's embrace. What if I fail? She whispered. Lisa gently stroked her hair. You won't fail, Emma. Even if things don't go exactly the way you expect, you'll learn. You'll grow. And you'll always have a home to come back to. I'll be here no matter what. Emma nodded, feeling the weight of her mother's words settle deep within her. It wasn't easy, this letting go, but she knew she had to. It wasn't about abandoning the past. It was about moving forward, even if it was a little scary. The decision wasn't easy, and Emma spent the next few days mulling it over. She wasn't going to rush into anything, but she knew what she had to do. In the end, the choice became clear. She would take the leap. She would go after what she truly wanted, even if it meant stepping into the unknown. Emma stood at the threshold of something big, something terrifying, and something exciting. She wasn't sure exactly where the road would lead, but for the first time in a long time, she was ready to find out. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The days following Emma's decision felt like a blur. There was a sense of finality in the air, like she had crossed a line and there was no turning back now. She had committed to her dream. She had accepted the offer from Blue Ridge Academy, and in a few short months, she would be on her way to a new chapter of her life. But even as she told herself she was ready, the reality of leaving everything behind started to sink in. The bustling streets of her hometown, the familiar faces at the cafe, and the cozy apartment she'd grown up in, all of it was going to change. She had known this was coming, but now that it was real, it felt more overwhelming than she had anticipated. It was the night before she was supposed to leave that Emma felt the weight of it all. Her suitcase sat in the corner of her room, half-packed. She had spent the past few days sorting through her clothes, her books, and her belongings, and the more she packed, the more it hit her. She wasn't just leaving behind a place. She was leaving behind the version of herself that had existed here. Her phone buzzed on the bed beside her. It was a message from Lily. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Emma stared at the screen for a moment, the words hanging in the air. She had thought a lot about this question over the past week, but the truth was she wasn't entirely sure. "No one ever was, right? Ready?" "I think so," Emma typed back, her fingers hovering over the keys. "It's scary, but I know this is the right step for me. And honestly, I don't think I'd feel ready if I didn't do it." A few seconds later, Lily replied, "You're going to do amazing, Em." "I know it." A small smile tugged at Emma's lips. She wasn't sure what the future held, but the words from her friend gave her the reassurance she needed. She was going to be okay. The next morning, the world seemed quieter than usual. Emma sat at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee in front of her. Her mom had already left for work, but Emma knew they would have a few moments together before she left. She wasn't sure if she could put her feelings into words, how much she was going to miss her, how uncertain she felt, but she was determined to try. She stood in the living room, her suitcase by her feet, and waited for her mom to come home. It didn't take long for Lisa to walk in, her face breaking into a smile when she saw Emma standing there, ready to leave. "You look like you're about to go on an adventure," Lisa said, her voice light, though Emma could hear the underlying emotion there. Emma nodded, her throat tight. "I am. I really am." Her mom came over and hugged her, the embrace warm and comforting. "I'm so proud of you, Emma. I know you've got big dreams, and I know you're going to chase them no matter where they take you." Emma fought back the tears that threatened to spill over. "It's going to be hard, though. Not having you here, not being around the people I've known my whole life." "I know, sweetheart," Lisa whispered, pulling back to look Emma in the eyes. "But you're going to make new memories. You're going to build a life there that's all your own. And I'll always be here if you need me." For a moment, Emma felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. It wasn't just that her mom was letting her go. It was that her mom was showing her the strength to go, to grow. "I'm going to miss you," Emma said softly, her voice catching. "I'll miss you too. But you have to go. You have to take the step. It's your time now." Emma nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. She could feel the weight of her mom's love in that moment, the quiet strength that had always been there even when it was hard to see. "Take care of yourself, Em. You're not alone. You've got me, and you've got Lily, and you've got your own heart. That's all you need." Emma hugged her mom once more, the sound of her heartbeat a steady reminder of home. When they pulled away, Emma wiped at her eyes, taking a deep breath. "Okay," Emma said, standing straighter. "I'm ready." The drive to Blue Ridge Academy was long, but it was one of those drives that felt surreal, like time was stretching and folding in on itself. As the car navigated the winding roads through the mountains, Emma looked out the window, trying to memorize every detail of the landscape, just in case. She didn't want to forget. Her mom kept glancing at her from time to time, as though checking to make sure Emma was still there, still real. The trip was an emotional one, and both of them were quiet for most of it, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, they reached the campus, the sprawling buildings surrounded by towering trees and lush green fields. It looked like something out of a dream. A new world. Emma's heart raced as they pulled into the parking lot. She couldn't help but wonder what the next few months, even years, would hold for her. Who would she meet? What would she learn? And most importantly, who would she become? They parked, and Emma sat there for a moment, gathering her courage. She could feel her mom's gaze on her. "Mom, this is it," Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. Her mom smiled softly, though her eyes were filled with a mixture of pride and sadness. "This is it. Go, Emma. Chase your dreams." Emma didn't need any more encouragement. She grabbed her suitcase and, with one last look at her mom, she stepped out of the car and into her future. The dorm room was small but cozy, and when Emma opened the door, she was met with the sight of an empty space, her space, waiting to be filled with new memories. She set her suitcase down and began unpacking, organizing everything just so. It felt like a ritual, one that helped her ground herself in the unfamiliar. When she finished, she stood at the window, looking out at the vast expanse of the campus. It was peaceful here, and for a moment, Emma closed her eyes, just breathing it all in. This was her new beginning. The road ahead was uncertain, yes, but Emma knew, deep down, that it was hers to walk. She took one last deep breath, feeling a sense of hope rising within her. She was ready to face the unknown, to embrace everything that came with this new chapter. She didn't have all the answers, but for the first time in a long time, she didn't need them. She was ready. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?